mysteries and revenge stories and righting wrongs. Yeah, I would love to read you the description for today's book review, but I can't because the book I reviewed hasn't yet been made available for pre-order. So the book that I reviewed is called All of Them to Burn by Beau Johnson. I don't even have a cover available to show you, but I imagine it would be something like this, which is his first book, A Better Kind of Hate. Now, this book, All of Them to Burn, is a collection of short stories, each story about 1,000, 1,200 words or so, that mostly follow the character and posse Bishop Ryder. Now, Ryder is on a quest for righteous vengeance, I guess you would call it. His sister and mother, I believe, were taken and assaulted, and other things were not good, and so what he did is he then sought revenge and was doing his best to put the trafficking ring into the grave, and this done in a manner spectacularly not associated with law. So there were a bunch of different stories that followed this, different episodes in his journey, some when he was younger, some when he was older, some with different places, different people. It was an interesting collection, and so this book is meant to be sort of a crime fiction piece, which I have looked up specific definitions so that I can explain things. Crime fiction pieces are meant to have a mystery or situation or event that must be solved, and in doing so, a person is, the reader especially, but also the main character, that's important too, is meant to learn important things about humanity, about themselves, and about their place in the world. Now, this book is not your typical crime fiction, which usually involves such things as, say, a detective and a specific murder mystery and that sort of a thing. I read a bunch of crime fiction in many different forms. This one was completely different from what I was expecting. It definitely has that problem to be solved, but it was not at all what I was expecting. I was expecting more of a let's go gather some evidence and break some kneecaps and find out the answers and therefore get vengeance in that way. However, this was more on the breaking kneecaps as vengeance scale than anything, which was not what I was expecting at all. Now, the writing for this was extremely articulate. It is difficult to make a coherent story with a collection of short stories, but it is also extremely difficult to make each short story coherent in its own right and stand alone in its own right. This was done exceptionally well. These stories created vivid imagery in my mind. It was really fascinating to read, especially because it didn't necessarily follow a coherent timeline, and not all of the stories were related to the original Bishop Ryder thing. There were some bits on time travel, some bits. There were some, horror pieces. There were all sorts of different things in there. And so not everything was coherent or cohesive chronologically or even with the story, but it was amazing how clear everything was and how well it fit together. The writing itself, extremely articulate, very well done. Everything was precisely as it should be for a short story as well as for a larger story, and I have to say that is extremely impressive. Now, personally, I'm not a huge fan of the scale of violence that a lot of these stories entailed. I prefer to see a lot more of the actual gathering of evidence and the deductions and inductions and all that sort of thing in my crime fiction, as opposed to, I suppose this is sort of Django style, Quentin Tarantino style crime fiction, which definitely has a niche and is definitely viable and extremely well done in its own right. It's not my favorite thing in the world. So I would say this book, from an objective scale, is very good, very well written. If you're into crime fiction, if you're into sort of the darker side of things, where the logical sequence of events from conception of mystery / problem to solving of mystery / problem this is more like if Stephen King and Quentin Tarantino wrote a bunch of short stories in the genre of crime fiction. It was very interesting. Yeah, I would say if you're interested in that, go read it. Definitely give it a shot. It should be coming out soonish. I don't know all the details, but I will find out and link them in the description box below. If you want to know more about that, you can find everything there. I suggest also going to talk to Beau Johnson. He's around on Twitter and whatnot, and he'll probably have more answers than I will, because it's his book. So that's all I've got for you today. You can find all of my links in the description box below as well, on the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter places. I have a book coming out soon. If you're interested, do ask me. Otherwise, I am happy to chat about anything. That's all I've got for you today, and I will see you next time.